Implied or actual violent behavior towards oneself or others for both men and women could lead to confinement, though this conduct in itself was not the only reason for incarceration, as it was usually also expressed in conjunction with conduct which indicated mental disorder, such as delusions. As well, domestic violence in the home was also a factor which brought about emotional collapse for women in particular. Whether patient-initiated or inflicted on the patient, violence was a very important aspect of the committal process, as the following examples illustrate. On January 21, 1898, 3 weeks after Adela was admitted to the Royal Edinburgh Asylum in Morningside, she wrote in a letter, "The monotony and routine simply drives me wild. I feel I shall go on degenerating in this environment into an animal." Her letter is one of more than 1,000 written by patients between 1873 and 1908, a 35-year era at the asylum in Morningside. The letters were mostly written to family members and often to speak of their perceived perfect mental state. Many letters written by patients at the hospital were given to staff, in the patients' hopes that they would help lead to their release from the institution, but most were never delivered. Instead, they were intercepted by staff who read them and decided whether they were suitable for posting. Patients knew what was happening and complained. Adam C. complained in 2 different letters about the censorship of his letters to friends, who never received these communications because they were confiscated. Elsa W., confined for 17 years until her discharge in 1915, complained to Provincial Secretary Hanna in 1909 about this practice. Surely a wife can write her honest thoughts to her own husband and sons without being censored by those who regarded it their duty to criticize my letters. Will you kindly let me know why my sister's letters to her brother and myself are always destroyed and not mailed to us? I have no other means of hearing from her except through her letters. My brother addressed and stamped envelopes and gave them to her and told her to write to him. He did not hear from her and went to the asylum to see her, and she told him that she had written 3 letters and had also written me, and that the letters had to be given to her nurse unsealed and had been destroyed. I was not aware that a hospital was a prison, and its inmates had to be cut off entirely from all help and friends. Eve S. was 25 years old when she was imprisoned in the York County Jail in 1903, thereafter placed in the Hamilton Asylum and then transferred to Toronto in 1906, where she remained until her death in 1910. Her confinement provides evidence of how sexuality combined with violent behavior towards others could lead to confinement. Eve had epilepsy, was reported to have no known relatives, and had been jailed as a vagrant after living at the Haven. Eve was reported to have lived with a man who told her that if she lived with him and they had a child together, she would be cured of her epileptic seizures. How this relationship ended is not stated, but it is clear that she did not like men, as she was reported to have hidden with a club and threatened to kill 2 male servants while employed as a domestic worker at a doctor's house. The records of the Toronto Hospital for the Insane also show that sexual promiscuity combined with homosexual behavior could lead to incarceration. Matilda M. was a single woman, about 29 when she was confined in 1903, after spending 2 months in the Toronto jail. This was her third confinement, and she would be discharged in 1907 as manic-depressive recovered. The medical certificates attesting to her insanity state that she was in love with another woman, with whom she had engaged in sexual activity and had continually impure desires towards her. Matilda also talked unblushingly about her sexual relations with males, as well as with other females. Prison doctor James Richardson wrote, "She has evidently no control over her sexual desires, other than the brief observation that she laughs, talks strangely, sings, and will not work." All of the comments emphasize Matilda's sex life when framing the reasons for her committal as a madwoman.